The floor is now open. Is there any motion on the floor? Delegate Brazil.
Motion to introduce the draft resolution.
Thank you, Delegate. We are now moving on to the voting procedure. All those for this voting procedure.
Those voting for this motion, please raise their placard. Those voting against? Due to overwhelming majority, this motion passes.
Okay. Sponsor, please stand up and read out loud your operative clauses.
The United Nations Human Rights Council 1. Strongly recommends the construction of refugee camps capable of addressing adequate human rights, which exhorts the creation of a framework to define the minimum standards of living necessary for a refugee's survival and comfort, including but not limited to. 2. Urges member states to implement adaptation programs focused on reducing affected people's vulnerability, thereby strengthening the prevention of displacement through well-prepared initiatives through means such as but not limited to.
3. Further urges member states to establish a policy framework which provides overarching guidance in the context of disasters, displacement, and recovery for displaced people within a national border through means such as but not limited to.
Recommends member states to develop safeguard policies, programs, and laws on evictions to prevent evictions to take place without the protection for displaced communities moving to a planned relocation area in ways such as but not limited to.
Thank you, sponsors.
We will now be inviting 2 speakers to speak for and 2 speakers to speak against this draft resolution. Are there any such speakers on the floor? I'll be calling for 2 speakers speaking for. Delegate of Vietnam and Delegate of France. 2 speakers speaking against. Are there any such speaker on the floor? Delegate of Russia and Delegate of India. In that order, Delegate of Vietnam, you may have the floor. Thank you, Delegate. The Delegate of France, you may now have the floor. Thank you, Delegate. Delegate of India, you may now have the floor. Thank you, Delegate. The chairs have also received an amendment to this draft resolution. This will be a friendly amendment since it is coming from the sponsors. The amendment follows. Add to Clause 3, Subclause A, developing protection centers guidelines to assist the displaced communities and other stakeholders identify the appropriate durable solutions, such as but not limited to, subclause I, sustainable return and reintegration at the place of origin. This will be automatically added to the draft resolution. The floor is once again open. Are there any other motions on the floor?
The chair looks favorably upon a motion to move into voting procedure.
Delegate of Russia.
Motion to move to a voting procedure.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegates wishing to vote for this motion, please raise their placard. Due to overwhelming majority, this motion passes. We'll be now moving on to the voting procedures. Are there any motions regarding the voting procedures on the floor? Delegate of Russia.
Motion to divide the House.
That is in order. Are there any other motions regarding the voting procedures? Seeing none, we now vote on the motion to divide the House. Delegates wishing to vote for this motion, please raise their hand and raise a placard. With 2 votes for and 8 votes against, this motion fails. Delegate, you may have will now be moving on to voting procedures. The chairs would like to remind that you may abstain unless you have stated your presence as present and voting. With that said, delegates will be now moving on to the voting procedures for draft resolution 1.0. Please don't move out of your seat, do not crosstalk or use any electronic devices. Staff, please secure the door. Delegates wishing to vote for this draft resolution, please raise your placard. Delegates wishing to vote against. With 7 votes for and 3 votes against, this draft resolution passes. Delegates, clapping is in order.